Talking about an all the way. Talking about an all the way.
Without a solution. Wake up, wake up.
America is already great.
Wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up.
When they go low, we go high.
That's our motto. We want freedom by any means necessary.
Wake up. The front page with Dominic DePrima is on. News, knowledge, and your voice. The views and opinions expressed on the front page are not necessarily those of Taxi Productions or KJLH. Rise, shine, and stay woke. It's the front page with Dominic DePrima on Radio Free 102.3 KJLH.
If you dare to struggle, you dare to win. If you dare not to struggle, then you don't deserve to win.
Wake up, wake up.
Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the front page on 102.3 Radio Free KJLH. My name is Starlett Quarles, and I will be filling in over the next 3 weeks for Miss Dominique DePrima, who is out, I hope, enjoying her holiday vacation. And I am so excited and honored to spend some time with the front page family. We have an exciting line of shows coming up for you over the next few weeks, and we're going to be addressing many of the current topics and issues that are impacting the Black communities across the country. For those of you who may or may not know me, I am the host of the internet TV talk show, The Dialogue with Starlett Quarles, where I thoroughly enjoy engaging in conversations that are relevant to the Black community and also having an opportunity to provide a platform and a voice for today's generational leaders. And during my time here on the front page, I'm going to introduce you to some of my young professional friends and colleagues who have a lot to say about the state of Black America. So we have an absolutely fantastic lineup of guests for you to tune in to this week on the front page. I will be here for the next 3 days. This morning, we're going to launch this week with our conversation on Trump and the future of Black America. Tomorrow, we'll be addressing sexual harassment and the trickle-down effect. And on Wednesday, I'm going to end my week here with our conversation on sex trafficking and today's youth. Then I'll come back next Tuesday after Christmas. Kissmas. Hi, Dorian. With our conversation surrounding the days of Kwanzaa. And lastly, we're going to bring in the new year together during the first week in 2018. So again, welcome to the front page. Hi, Dorian.
What's going on?
How you doing? Oh.
Yeah. What's going on?
Good to see you. I'm so glad to be back here. I haven't been here since last Kwanzaa. But without further ado, let me introduce our panel for today's conversation. Trump and the future of Black America. What is the future of Black America with this administration? Starting with my good friend, Ms. Dallas Fowler, who is principal at Daltek Global Solutions, LLC, a boutique digital and print media consulting firm specializing in political and business development, as well as community outreach. Dallas was appointed by Mayor Eric Garcetti to serve as commissioner on the Los Angeles Police Department's Permit Review Board, and she also was an alternate for the Los Angeles County Democratic Party and has served as an elected district-level delegate for Senator Bernie Sanders at the Democratic National Convention. Let's welcome Ms. Dallas Fowler to the front page. Hi, Dallas. How you doing this morning? Are you sleepy?
This is the hour that it's like, ooh, when I woke
Girl,
up,
I know my lips are
might not
usually
make it.
I know.
I made it. Here
my
we
lips
are.
are usually on the pillow by now.
Yeah.
But they are up, talking on the front page. Next to her is Miss Maleena Lawrence, who is a journalist, host, actress, producer, and campaign messaging consultant. She's also chief editor and creator of the Poli-Tainment Report, a socio-political and entertainment blog, as well as co-founder of Revolutionize Hollywood, an accelerator program elevating artists as entrepreneurs, artpreneurs. You're developing a new word, artpreneurs.
Entrepreneurs.
Entrepreneur. All right, get it together, girl. You can correct me. She has also established Deep-Rooted Entertainment, a multimedia agency that produces intergenerational content and events that influences various brands and social political campaigns to support the improvements of underserved communities. Please welcome my good friend Maleena Lawrence. Hi, beautiful.
Hey.
I'm not doing enough with my life.
Maleena got all, you must be Jamaican. You got all them there jobs.
It's multimedia. It all works together. That's what we all do up in here.
All do up in here, up in here. And last but certainly not least, Mr. John Wood Jr., who is a writer and thinker from the LA area. What you be thinking about? A former nominee for Congress and the nation's youngest African-American Republican nominee in 2014. John's work focuses on diffusing the political, racial, and religious polarization in American life. He was also the former vice chairman of the Republican Party of Los Angeles and is also the host of the Wood Review on YouTube. Please welcome Mr. John Wood Jr. to the front page. Welcome and thank you all for joining us here this morning. We got a lot to talk about. We got a whole lot to talk about from this year. But starting off, just in your opinion, just off the top, Dallas, I'm going to start off with you. What is the future of Black America under the Trump administration?
Well, the future of Black America under the Trump administration is very bleak, as it is for all of America.
Okay.
You know, this is very dangerous times that we are entering in with this president. I think from every front, we are under attack. If it is in our health care, it's our very economy with this tax bill that they have been trying to prop up. And I hope that all of America, not just Black America, is calling their representatives at the federal level against this tax bill, because it is going to decimate what we have left of the middle class here. So we are under attack at that level and our environment. They're looking to do the offshore drilling. They're looking to do continue the hydraulic fracturing and all of the other things that have been fracturing near communities, low-income communities of color that's mostly being impacted there. We are at attack at education, which is, you know, our very future in and of itself, and how we move forward in the future. I think the most dangerous thing to me that has come up, which was yesterday, I hear that they've banned certain words through the Department of Health and Human Services. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, okay, so I'll give us some time to talk about that. But that is some of the most heinous criminal thing that I can think of thus far from this administration.
Maleena, I see you shaking your head.
Nah, I mean, I'll second everything Dallas said and just add to it when it comes to the racial disparities. I'm happy to actually have this dialogue and conversation, because we are looking at alarming rates of incarceration, just as well as systematic slavery increasing and not being discussed in this administration from a state, local, and federal level as well. And then you're looking at our president, period.
Okay.
Wasting so much time, I think the whole Congress and the Senate wasting too much time in looking at what our previous administration, the Obama administration, did and trying to undo versus really taking that whole plateau to be able to advance America and Black America.
Okay, John, your thoughts?
Well, can I shout out to my mama real quick?
You can shout. Is she up?
This is my mama's favorite show.
Morning, mama. Morning, mama. Listen to your baby. Your baby's on air.
Right. She told me not to embarrass her on her favorite show, so I'm going to do my best in that department.
Well, what are your thoughts on the future of Black America under the Trump administration?
Yeah, right. So I'm a little bit more optimistic, and it's not because I'm a fan of Trump in any particular way. I mean, I'm really not. I think I didn't support Donald Trump, but I do think that the predominant trend of problems that we have in the black community are problems that were really pre-existing the Trump administration. And I think that the Trump administration is a little bit limited in terms of the either good or damage it can do because of the fact that Donald Trump's political position is relatively weak, especially in comparison to most first-year presidents. I think there are a lot of problems with the tax bill. I don't necessarily think the tax bill is going to decimate the middle class. There are definitely things to complain about. But I think that at the end of the day, the thing that the black community has needed to focus on and continues to need to focus on, I think a lot of leaders in the black community are particularly waking up to, is the need to maximize our leverage within the political system, within, I would like to say, both political parties.
Okay.
But one interesting thing you saw coming out of the state election in Alabama after the black vote basically decided the outcome of that race is a lot of folks waking up to the fact that, hey, look, we've got a particular amount of leverage in the political system. We ought to be using that leverage to exert more demands and requirements from our elected officials and political parties to speak to the interests of the black community. That's the type of thing that's key for our agenda going forward.
Now, good term, agenda, because one of the things that I often talk about is our need to have a black agenda. And without a clear and strategic agenda, how can black people win over the next 4 years? And Maleena, what are we holding this administration accountable to?
Well, I think we need to hold the administration accountable and duly hold ourselves accountable for taking political, for having a social and a political agenda. And what that means for me, and I think the black community when it comes to our agenda, is really looking at the needs that are local needs that have a national impact. Like I said, be it incarceration, be it our environment, be it increasing numbers, you mentioned earlier, in just gender equality, and our youth having jobs, our families having jobs, and equity. So across the board, fair equity within the black community when it comes to jobs and the workforce and things of that nature.
Dallas, how can we win? How can we win over the next 4 years under the Trump administration if we, as a community, don't have a clear and strategic agenda?
I do not foresee 4 years of the Trump administration.
You don't think so?
I am asking every single member of Congress whose lives all of the American people's hands are essentially in right now to come forward and impeach this president.
Okay.
You know, I had the honor of attending Congresswoman Maxine Waters' holiday party last night, and she has been very vigilant and staying active on impeaching this president. And I'm glad that Robert Mueller is starting to come forth with more his investigation, and I think it's an ongoing thing that I think is starting to come to a head, and I think that day by day we are going to see the unfolding of an impeachment of this president. I do not foresee 4 years.
Okay, so even if you don't see him being in office for the next 4 years, how do we win as a community without an agenda? How do we start establishing an agenda?
I think we do have.
What's our agenda?
I think we do have an agenda set in every action and in every area. Okay. I think the one area that the black community may be the weakest on is probably the environment, because we don't have enough opportunities to show that we do care about our environment and how it intersects with public health. I think that it's very critical for us to know that we have to do make every effort possible to take back the House and the Senate. Okay. And what we saw in Alabama was a good testament to people being clear about our agenda and getting out the vote.
Okay, all right. John, you had mentioned at the top of the hour that you did not vote for Trump. You are a Republican. Why did you not vote for Trump? Do you believe he's racist?
No, I've never believed that Donald Trump was racist. I've always believed that Donald Trump was essentially kind of like just a quintessential opportunist. I mean, you could probably say con man. That might be sort of a good word for it. Look, I've spent a lot of years working in politics as well as sales and marketing, and I feel like I'm pretty good at sort of knowing when somebody is willing to say anything or tell any story in order to make a deal or make a sale. I mean, Donald Trump is a person who, God, I hate that this is such a cliche phrase and so forth, but he's got, quote, black friends, and he's got different people he interacts with.
Donald Trump got black friends?
Russell Simmons was a homie for a while.
He just kicked out one of them.
Mike Tyson, Dennis Rodman, Kanye.
Steve Harvey.
Right.
Steve Harvey, right. It's kind of tough being Donald Trump's black friend now, though. Omarosa figured that out, I guess. Yeah, that's the thing. But no, I've never necessarily thought that he had any racial prejudice. But you don't have to be a racist to have a lot of severe ethical problems. And I think that's just the truth about Donald Trump. But even so, I mean, I had a difficult time supporting him on that level. I didn't think that he had a policy agenda which was particularly coherent or consistent. I will say for Donald Trump, I do think, even if you look at it in kind of a perverse way, I think that during the campaign, he actually did more than most other Republican nominees for president to actually speak to the black community. Now, he did it in a way that seemed real condescending and arrogant in a lot of ways. But, he actually gave a couple of speeches aimed at the black community. So I was kind of like, geez, man, you're doing it all wrong, but at least you're doing it. So, I kind of appreciated that a little bit. But again, that's just the point. The system, we need to get the system to focus on us a little bit more.
Okay,
and so whatever opportunity for that is a good one.
Maleena, why is your face doing that?
Because in ways I agree, and then there's not even a disagreement isn't the word. What's the word for me right now is what are we doing and how are we doing it and how are we moving and how we're mobilizing. Mm-hmm. Because when I think about our country and I think about the black community and the power of the black vote, I don't think that us as a people and a community, and I'm talking on a national scale, not just here in LA, are really taking advantage of the time, the opportunity, and the advantage that we have within our disadvantages.
Okay.
Because the agenda is not as strong across the board, because a lot of Black America until recently is waking up to the point of, okay, this is an opportunity. What are we going to do? And we're talking about a president who is very ignorant and empathetic and for his own interests, but at the same time, our interest needs to be amplified. Okay. We had the civil rights movement. Now we're in a very special place in America, and we're in a very special place so we can challenge and jump on board with our elected officials and really evaluate 2018 now, and not wait for who's running or who's in office, but pressure those who are in office now to take full accountability for the black community without a doubt and unapologetically be black. Like, for real.
Be black. In case you're just tuning in, I'm Starlett Quarles filling in for Miss Dominique DePrima, who is on vacation. And today we're talking about Trump and the future of Black America. John, just real quickly, as a young Black Republican, there are a lot of millennials who are coming into the party. So do you believe that there is an emergence of conservative beliefs amongst today's young Black professionals?
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, the influx of millennials has probably been slowed down a little bit to the GOP over the last few months or so. I do think, though, that, I mean, in terms of like conservative perspective, obviously you've got a wide spectrum of political and social issues and so forth, and a person can be in either party and kind of fall on the right side or the left side a little bit depending on who they are as an individual. But I do think that one thing you're certainly seeing amongst Black millennials is a focus on the importance of innovation, of entrepreneurship, and certainly Republicans don't have a monopoly on that by any means. But I do think that it's a good thing that you have sort of a budding culture of economic ambition amongst a young Black professional class that seeks to kind of look at the landscape of American society and say, well, yeah, there's all sorts of problems with the capitalistic structure, but nevertheless, this is a structure that's allowed for the generation of an enormous amount of wealth in American and global society, and that wealth is available for African Americans as well who want to step up and take advantages of opportunity.
Okay.
So I think that that's a very positive thing.
Dallas, do you believe that the time has come now for Black Democrats and Black Republicans to work together across party lines on behalf of Black America? And if so, what does that look like?
I think that has always been a need, a necessity for us to stay in contact and understand where we are in totality on issues that really matter and impact us. But I have not found a social issue, to be quite honest, that is, aside from probably pipeline to prison and mass incarceration. But outside of that, most of these issues are impacting all of us.
Okay.
And I think it's beyond party lines for Black people. I think it's really doing the work, which we've seen, I think, with some of these women marches and some of the other activism that's taken place in the last year to really combat Donald Trump's efforts. But I think we really need to be calling our white, Latino, Asian, whatever your nationality is or of choice. I think it's up to us to call them on to the carpet as well, because these are issues that are impacting everyone.
Okay.
This is calamity. When we're talking about Donald Trump, we are talking about an individual who has put forth a calamity bill and measure and policy, one thing after another. So I'll let you go into
Okay. No, actually, we're going to go take a caller. We have a caller.
Before you,
Okay.
I did want to think about, I thought about this too. Judges, we look at our judicial system, what's really impacting young people of color in particular. This individual has the opportunity to appoint judge after judge, and we see that it is our judicial system is very much still white male dominated, and we need parity and equity there.
Okay.
And that's what we should be pushing for as well.
Okay. All right, we're going to go to the phone lines. We have a caller, and please welcome to the front page. Who we're speaking with?
My name is Wendell. I'm from South Los Angeles.
Hi, Wendell. Do you have a quick question for our panel?
Well, I have a comment more. It's more of a comment.
Okay.
I mean, I understand Democrat, Republican. I've said this on this show many a time before. I am so disenchanted with the two-party system. Because, I mean, because all we got, basically lobbyists get in the way, special interest groups get in the way. I wish we could I wish we could have more choices as far as party lines go, and that money was divided equally amongst each party, and we could eradicate lobbyists and everything like that. That's in the perfect world, because I know the system's not perfect. Because like I said, I'm not that much enchanted with the Democratic Party either. I mean, but it's just one of these things, and basically I'm going to leave you guys with this thought. The power of the people is always greater than the people in power. Have a good day.
Thank you
so much. Thank you so much. Anybody want to have a comment?
I just have to say thank you for speaking my language,
Yes, Wendell,
because
thank
if I can keep it real about the Democratic Party, and I'm also a state party delegate to the California Democratic Party, we'll be voting on endorsing from governor on down the state level in February of 2018. I have to say, I'm in an abusive relationship with the Democratic Party. Black women, black people, period.
Man.
We are in a serious abusive relationship with the Democratic Party. They love us when it's time for us to get out the vote. And then when it comes time for us to be leadership in our party, they look the other way.
Okay.
And I think, and when it comes time to allocating dollars towards getting our vote out, the DNC has been looking the other way.
Okay.
And I think that is something that Wendell, I know you didn't express, but I hope I'm drawing the same line for you there. You are not the only one. Many of us feel that way. And the other aspect about that is in terms of public financing of campaigns. Until we get there, it's hard to get the lobby out. It's hard to get clean campaign finance until we get public financed elections.
Maleena, I saw you shaking your head.
Yeah, we definitely got to wash through our moral ethics and conduct when it comes to party lines. And also, to Wendell's point, good morning, Wendell, and thank you for your comment. We have to realize as well, my grandma and I, we having pillow talk, and she always shares with me the stories, and I grew up in Delaware, stories where black people were Republican first before they had got paid off between votes being paid off with liquor or chicken dinners. And then they turned to Democrats in Delaware. So we were black people in the African American community. We started off with a high voter base as Republicans before Democrats. But when my taste buds really, really shifted, I think my heart is very independent. and I vote Democrat.
Okay.
However, when I witnessed the DNC in 2016 and Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, when I witnessed the people in our parties and for different candidates really infighting during that time, it just did a distaste in my mouth, and it really said to me, what are the people? What's the power of the people? And for us, no matter what party you're in, you got to stand up for what's morally right, that's going to affect you short and long term in your future when it comes to politics and social issues.
Fantastic. We are at the top of the hour, and you're listening to 102.3 Radio Free KJLH. Okay, I just want to ask you, and I'm going to start with you, John, in terms of Dallas. You talked about it earlier about impeachment. Do you believe Trump should or will be impeached? Why or why not?
I think my opinion is that it's very unlikely that the president will be impeached. And the reason I say that is simply because I'm not sure that, even though to me it seems pretty undisputable that Russia meddled in the election and pushed propaganda to stir the outcome in the presidential race, and even though it seems clear that the president is really just uncomfortably like pro-Putin and kind of pro-dictator in a lot of ways, and there are all sorts of winks and nods from one side of the Atlantic over to Eastern Europe during the course of the campaign. I think that what you would need in order to catalyze a successful impeachment effort, I mean, I'm not saying that there won't be members of Congress, like Maxine Waters, who are going to keep pressing the charge to push for impeachment. But I think that you would really need a smoking gun that identifies in clear and unequivocal terms an active collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russian government that goes beyond just sort of asking for campaign dirt, but really goes to the point of coordinating in order to advance a propaganda agenda, or that is to say, strategic propaganda to subvert the American election. And even if there's some, for the sake of the argument, some unspoken or some informal relationship there, I think it's very unlikely that Robert Mueller is going to find a smoking gun that's hot enough to actually make that happen in Congress.
Well, let's just see. Time will tell. And I think that he has found that, and that is, and the president is walking a very fine line of obstruction of justice, and we already saw that with the firing of James Comey. I think there are a number of instances surrounding an impeachment of this president. I think he's already committed some of those instances that are very impeachable offenses. How do we let this country stand and go around and call for members of Congress to be removed for sexual misconduct, and we have a president here who has not been removed from his post for sexual misconduct? But we also can get into a number of layers of collusion. Anytime his attorney needs to get an attorney, I think time says that an impeachment is impending, and if we do get the House back, if Democrats do take the House back, you can be certain that there's an impeachment. But I think this is interesting, though, from the Republican standpoint. If Republicans really wanted to save their seats, they would be starting this process before midterm elections really get underway.
Well, can I say something? I mean, that could definitely be true. With previous presidents, I would have said that the odds of just about any previous president being impeached is something like 99-1. With Trump, it's kind of like 60-40. So I'm not saying like it's a total impossibility. And part of Trump's weakness is the fact that he really does have a lot of enemies within the Republican Party, because as you know, I mean, Trump didn't just slam Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama in unprecedented ways during and before the general election. He also slammed the Bush family and the Romney and the Romneys and people within the GOP in ways that you just had never seen in a primary
and continues
before.
To do so.
Right, but I mean, at the end of the day, not to take us too far off of that topic, but at the end of the day, Trump is only going to be here for however long. Even if he serves out a full term, I doubt he gets a second one. But even if he got a second one, I mean, the agenda that black... Okay, speak it into existence, right? But the agenda of Black America has got, obviously, to transcend any kind of temporary political circumstances. Just to piggyback off of what Dallas said a moment ago about being kind of in an abusive relationship with one's own political party. I mean, obviously, I can kind of relate to that. But the truth of the matter is that, I mean, for me, one of the things that's important to recognize is that, and not to get all history professor on us, but I mean, there was a period of time when the black community, as was also alluded to earlier, was predominantly Republican. And then coming out of the civil rights movement, we were prominently Democrat, overwhelmingly Democrat. But most of our major legislative advancements took place in that 25 to 35 year period of history between the New Deal and the end of the civil rights movement, the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. in particular, wherein we got past the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act, the integration of the armed forces, and all of these other things. And that had no little bit to do with the fact that African Americans had leverage in both political parties at that point. So, I mean, as a practical matter, and I hope that we can find a little bit of agreement on this, a political party should not be looked at as something whose our affiliation with should transcend our affiliation and our commitment to our own people. Political parties should always be simply a vehicle for the progress that we seek to create. Because once we get sucked into the idea of serving their agenda instead of having them serve ours, then we've got the whole equation backwards.
Okay. It makes me think, though, to look at political parties and political systems. Why do black people in this day and time, after the new deals, keep getting bad deals?
Well,
and so when we look at our agenda and we're looking at Donald Trump, I can't help but to think that when you're disloyal to your country and you, in your words, colluding with Russians, that's not treason and automatic grounds for impeachment.
Okay.
You know, not just sexual misconduct and whatever else.
Okay.
You know, but it's bad incorporation.
Dallas, you know, you had mentioned the tax bill, so I want you to elaborate a little bit more on that. Who will benefit the most from the Republicans' proposed tax bill, and how do you believe it will impact Black America?
Well, that's the easiest question, the wealthiest 1%. But I just really want to get back to this statement he made about...
that's messing with you. It's in your spirit.
Yes, because the reality is
I'm ready for
one party has a completely different set agenda and acknowledgement of issues pertaining to black people in this country over the other. And it's fundamentally different on every level that impacts us, from education to mass incarceration. And I think it's very disingenuous to think that no system is perfect. I'll say this, and I think that was the beauty of Senator Sanders' campaign, and partially why I supported him. And I think it's going to take an effort, like the effort of his campaign, of people across party lines coming together to say no to the policies and positions of this administration. And I think you're seeing that. And you saw it in Virginia, you saw it in New Jersey, you saw it in Alabama. Well, Alabama is a little bit more different of a situation, but you're seeing this happen where it's not just Democrats stomping on the ground. You've got Our Revolution, you have independents, and you have all these other movements coming together, and that is one thing that the Trump administration is doing. He is uniting Americans for sure to get him out of there. That is where we're at. Hashtag impeach 45.
Yeah, but you know, it is possible. It is possible to piece together what's ultimately could be a bipartisan agenda on the basis of advancing progress for the African American community.
You mean piece together
impeachment? I really do believe that, and part of what you have to remember is that our current polarization with our politics is in part, I don't want to say an accident exactly, but it's in part a reflection simply of the changing demographic structure in terms of the way different groups have essentially, in a sense, sort of switched their political allegiances over the course of the last 30 or 40 years. But I mean, prior to that, obviously the Republican Party had a, comparatively speaking, more sort of pro civil rights, more sort of minority, certainly African American empowerment agenda, as reflected by the fact that Republicans in Congress voted in very large number in favor of the sorts of civil rights legislation that was ultimately a hallmark in terms of advancing black political progress. And that was in no small fact owing to the fact that you had prominent African Americans within that party advocating for the interests of the black community, which made it more important for Lyndon Johnson and Jack Kennedy and people on the Democratic side of the aisle to say, well, wait a second, we can't afford afford to put black interests on the back burner, because if we do, Republicans will pick up more of these votes. Now, obviously, with the Southern strategy and different things that the Republican Party did, and Lyndon Johnson getting so much credit for the Democratic Party in terms of signing into law things like the Voting Rights Act and Civil Rights Act, etc., allegiance is split, and we're now in a situation to where our political interests are largely concentrated on one side of the aisle. But look, I'm not telling anybody not to be a Democrat. My point is that it is possible, and that's part of why I am a Republican, to try and advance the contours of a black agenda across the political spectrum. Because if we do that and exercise our leverage in key places, it can make a difference. And you've seen that with things like Rand Paul and Cory Booker and the Libertarians in the Republican Party being willing to work across the aisle for criminal justice reform. So just believe me, it can happen if we make it.
It's not negating the issues that are on the table in the black community. I think when we look at, to Wendell's point, who called in earlier, it's some of the disrespect that the Republican Party has showed face of when it comes to black people and addressing the black community so publicly, and it's good to let your sheets be shown opposed to hiding them in the dark. I get that. But at the same time, when we're looking and moving forward with a quote-unquote agenda, or the lack thereof, or one to build and propose and reshift, the landscape and the voter base has changed. Millennials are pushing. Black women voted 95% in Alabama. So now we're looking at, you look at white women in the South not coming out to support hardly at all in Alabama. I think that's problematic. But you're back to the party as a whole. I think that when I look at TV, I'm very disenchanted about how our Congress and how our Senate, granted their majority, the Republican Party is the majority, but the way they show face and address the public and dismiss the previous administration and black people in general, I think the Republican Party really needs to work on that respectfully when it comes to black people and how we're treated.
All right. Well, to go back to your question about the tax bill, which further illustrates my point about the Republican Party and their agenda that only supports the wealthiest 1% of this country, which most black people in America do not fall into that category. They are only 0.01% of that 1%. And so their agenda has historically and currently, as it is today, only impacted the very wealthiest few in this country, and that is not black people.
Okay, and we can elaborate on that when we come back. We're going to now take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation on Trump and the future of black America, as well as open the phone lines. We want to hear from you, so give us a call and come back right here with me, Starlett Quarles, on the front page on 102.3 Radio Free KJLH. We'll be right back.
The Dialogue, the community voice of Southern California's young professional network. Relevant discussions about the thoughts, concerns, opportunities, and challenges faced by today's generational leaders. Real talk, real people. This is The Dialogue. The Dialogue with Starlett Quarles.
Welcome back to the front page. I'm your host, Starlett Quarles, filling in for Miss Dominique DePrima this week. This morning, we've been talking about Trump and the future of black America with my guests, Dallas Fowler, Maleena Lawrence, and John Wood Jr. I know we have a bunch of calls, and I want to get to all of you. We're going to quickly go to Jackie. Good morning, Jackie. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Thank you for being so patient. Do you have a question or comment for our guest?
Thank you to all three of you young people. You are absolutely on the front line and where you need to be. I want to urge everyone today to call the Senate and the House regarding this tax bill. It is not too late. They're trying to make us think that it's all happening and we're observing. We can make a difference as we're seeing already. And I want to urge everyone to call 202-224-3121. If you don't know who your congressperson is or your senator, then go to www.senate.gov or www.house.gov and get that information. Tell them to vote no on this tax bill. We can still make a difference. But I also want to say I agree that everything needs to happen. But remember, Martin Luther King was made palatable because of Malcolm X and Stokely Carmichael. And so everything we can do must be done. Our goal has to be 100% turnout in 2018. We can actually control what happens there and stop it pretty much like they did to President Obama. And while we're working on impeachment, we need to do that.
Thank you, Jackie. And could you repeat that number again?
202-224-3121.
Thank you very
Yes,
much.
the power is with the people.
Thank you very much. So, Dallas, the Trump administration, this is really to all the panel, the Trump administration is banning the CDC from using a list of 7 words or phrases, including fetus, vulnerable, and transgender. Talk about the impact of this ban, and what do we need to know?
I think, and as someone who has worked with the Department of Health and Human Services through their grant review process, I've reviewed grants for them over the years for basic center programs and programs for the target runaway and foster youth, as well as mentoring children of prisoners. I think that this language is very dangerous. Very dangerous when we talk about the budget, their budget items, but not only that, and especially when you're talking about words of diversity, but what's most dangerous is science-based, the removal of the term science-based, evidence. I think that, and then the insertion of the term of evidence-based, those are things that are very dangerous. Okay. This is, the CDC is supposed to be a scientific institution. So if you are removing the word science or the removal of the word scientific based, study or research, you're talking about a whole system of how we study life. You're talking about an organization that is ran by people who are educated with bachelor's and master's and doctorates in science fields. And so the fact that they are wanting to deny science and insert their agenda of religious rhetoric, I think is more dangerous. But then it also brings into question, what are you doing? What is your agenda with the CDC that you want to remove these types of things? And I think it's just extremely dangerous. And I find to the point of being criminal when we talk about that. And also they removed LGBT and LGBT information off of the HHS website. And I think that is also well, I won't say as criminal, but it's taking us back. And we had already made such advancements.
Maleena?
Yeah, that is discriminatory, but even more so, it brings to mind during the Bush administration, during the Bush years, when there's a lot of outsourcing policies around outsourcing going on. What was happening also was that George Bush was blacking out some really key documents when it came to the environment and using the word junk science to really cover up our erosion of our earth and our planet, and how we were taking care of our planet. So as soon as I saw the words that were being banned and the replacement of these words, I think Representative Gwen Moore out of Wisconsin was saying how this report was just shameful on the administration, and it's true. Where is it going? What are we doing in this in terms of, again, our representatives who are representing and allowing this to happen? But it's also people and people power. This is an opportunity for you to call your representative and find out, because at the end of the day, this, in my opinion, it also equates and affects our healthcare system. And how the CDC is disseminating information to the public. And when it comes to the public, you got to remember that the CDC is also tied to prescription and drugs and pharmaceutical companies. And those pharmaceutical companies are getting payola and increases in premiums under this new tax bill. So all things work together. There's no accidents. But the thing is, why is this being done and under whose call and why?
John, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked into the administration's like official rationale for this, but I mean, it's just, to me, it's ironic because it's kind of like, I don't know, what would you say, like reverse political correctness or something? I mean, what they're actually saying is that there's certain terms and terminology that you cannot use in the grant application process and with other respects pertaining to the CDC. But, you know, Donald Trump and other people who supported Trump were the same individuals who were sort of like criticizing, you know, folks on the left and Democrats for saying, oh, you can't use these words in these different contexts and so forth. But we're actually going to make it policy that you can't use certain words like scientific and evidence-based in the context of a relevant application of governmental policy. I mean, to me, that's just like kind of mind-boggling.
Okay,
Man,
it's serious censorship.
Can I say something on the tax bill really quick? Because I want to give Dallas a chance to beat me up for anything I'm about to get wrong.
I know she will too.
I'm ready for the punishment. But no, look, I do think that there are definitely reasons to vote against this tax bill, especially if you're coming from a state like California or New York or Massachusetts, because part of what it does is it keeps you from being able to deduct your state taxes on the federal level. And that's a really tough thing. I mean, it's better if you're a person who lives in, I don't know, Montana or Wyoming or someplace where you're not paying state taxes to begin with, because particularly if you're already a middle-class individual to begin with who maybe doesn't rely as much on certain credits or so on and so forth.
Or an entrepreneur.
Well, yeah, and so for a lot of those people, you're just getting a rate cut, and so, you know, on aggregate it might be a good thing, but for folks in LA, I mean, you know, we might be having to have some problems out here. One of the big parts of the tax bill, of course, is the corporate rate decrease, and you know, President Trump isn't the only person to advocate for corporate rate reduction. President Obama at one point advocated that it be taken from 35% to 28%. So I forget what the rate is here, but I think it's they're taking it down to 21% and 22%. There are studies that show that when you have corporate rate reduction, most of the gains go to the workers, which isn't to say that the gains don't go disproportionately to CEOs. That is true, but both of those things can be true at the same time. So, for instance, if you've got, you know, 50% reduction in the corporate rate, you might have, say, 60% of that go to the workers, but the workers are, you know, 1 million people, and 40% of that goes to 100 CEOs or something like that. So I'm not saying it's equitable, but on balance, I don't necessarily think it's going to be quite so calamitous for the American economy.
I see you bubbling, Dallas.
Yeah, no, she's getting ready. I know. But depending on where you are, particularly if you're in, you know, a state like California, New York, urban areas where we already deal with a lot of state and local taxes and so forth, part of the way
and high
this
cost
bill
of
is
living.
Yeah, right. Part of the way this bill is kind of being balanced from a budgetary standpoint is by leaning on the fact that our deductions are being taken away in states like California. So, I mean, particularly if that's going to hurt you, I mean, you're not going to get any criticism from me for voting against the bill.
Dallas, I'm going to let you respond, and I'm going to ask you guys about Omarosa.
That's the very reason why you would vote against a bill like this. And I think but for laymen, because you were saying a lot of things, and just for the average layman who is listening to the program this morning, that essentially what John just described was the trickle down effect in corporate tax relief. So we give this corporate tax relief, and supposedly I don't know what study you got that from, that it impacts the employees, because we have not seen a federal minimum wage increase in this country to the degree that rises to the cost of living in this country in a very long time. And I think if you are raising the middle class's taxes and you're not raising their wages and their access to be able to afford to even live, the cost of even housing themselves, I think it's criminal. And I think that it's a very dangerous line that we walk on. There is if you are not making over $2 million a year, you should be calling your senator, your U.S. senator, and your United States Congress people to get out and vote no on this bill.
That's a whole lot of people.
That is most of us.
That's the point.
That's damn near all
That's
of
the
us.
point.
Okay, and so when we talk about what's really going to impact us and whether or not it's a tax rate, it's not just California and New York and these places. It is the small towns. It is the Tallahassee, Floridas, and the and the small towns in Wyoming and Cheyenne. This is impacting everyone because we don't have the adequate current minimum wage that impacts, and we know that's mostly black women. That's mostly women, single-family head of households that are impacted by this, that are mostly impacted by the federal minimum wage. So until we have parity there, how could we possibly be talking about raising people's taxes and lowering it?
And
this is the trickle-down effect that does not work.
I want to say, jump in here real quick too, and say that where these disparities come from and that trickle-down effect. Is looking at the American workforce and workforce that again was outsourced. And Trump had also said on his platform that we would make America great again and start rebuilding America and the infrastructure. I think those infrastructures need to be focused infrastructures, starting with community colleges. That infrastructure needs to be basic common sense training starting in 5th grade at this point, be it coding in every school, coding in elementary school, coding in middle school, coding in urban schools, coding, not just technology and coding, but also training. We lag. We're competing with China in fights with Russia, debating here, debating there, and investigations everywhere. But at the end of the day, what happens is that our country still needs to run. And our legislators still need to have jobs, like right here in Inglewood. We have gentrification happening. Let's just throw out all these different issues that are impacting our communities.
That's another topic.
It's another topic, but at the same time, what I'm talking about is job creation and job sourcing versus job training, and what's not being done to really bubble up our workplace and our economy.
And how many jobs has Trump created since he's been in office?
Kaboom.
0. How many jobs has he been focused on creating since he's been in office? We have seen 0 participation from his administration with regards to and bringing industrialization and with the individuals that he's appointed to head these. Please, Betsy DeVos, are you kidding me? Ben Carson, are you kidding me? 2 individuals completely incompetent as it relates to the positions that they have been put in. I think that is demonstrative of this administration's agenda to just be destructive versus constructive.
And speaking of Ben Carson, I want to talk to you about the blacks and the Trump, the blacks in the Trump administration
that love Trump.
Is he up yet?
In the Trump administration, starting with, of course, Omarosa, who in dramatic fashion, of course, left the White House. Either she was fired or she quit. I don't know. But what are your thoughts on Omarosa? I mean, is she going to tell it? She going to tell it? She going to tell it?
Is she the spook who sat by the door?
But is she the spook? I mean, what did she do for black people? And, I'm confused as to what her role was. But what does she do for black people? And Dallas, was she the spook by the door? Is she going to tell it all? Is she going to be the straw that breaks Trump's back and bring him to... She is going to write the book.
She's going to write the book.
And you know what? I'm going to buy it too.
I'm not buying the book.
I want to know.
I'm not buying it until you come out and have some relative information that leads to the captivity of Donald Trump.
You said like he's in his
because these are the people that are often getting away with the biggest crimes. And these are crimes against humanity. This is a crime against the American people, the policies that this individual and his administration has been setting forth. But as far as Omarosa is concerned, I know she's getting all the hashtag girl buys and buy Felicia's and, whatever. But, I know she had the president. They brought in the HBCU president. Shout out to HBCUs. I'm a FAMU graduate.
Norfolk State.
And I think it was a nice showing. It was a nice little dog and pony show, and you got him down there, and then he did what? Cut their funding. So, we have to be... I have not seen the value of what she was doing there, but maybe she can be more vocal about it. But at this point, unless she has something that leads to Trump's impeachment...
You ain't no words for her?
No words.
Maleena?
Shout out to HBCUs, Norfolk State University. Holla. As far as Omarosa, and I am laughing at Saturday Night Live clips. I'm laughing at Robin Roberts, Girl Bye. I mean, it is funny, but the state of seriousness is for real.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we cannot ignore it. What Omarosa's role is has yet to be revealed to me. I still don't understand it. I understand it by job description. In all fairness, her story coming from Ohio, her brother being shot, growing up in the projects. I mean, her story's relevant and
You would think
it's
that,
relatable.
yeah, she would have a sensitivity to the black community.
Right. But calibrating her sensitivity is where my sensibilities aren't heightened.
Okay.
I don't, she's not transparent enough for me to feel her and transparent enough for me to trust her.
Okay.
You know, in the sense of what is it that you do, because her personality precedes her politics and her social responsibility. So until I see something that says something to me,
okay,
that shows me that she has taken some type of accountability in office on behalf of the black agenda,
okay,
and just state what the black agenda is for herself in office, is serving at the pleasure of the president during her time there before she was either fired, let go, or
They could have got
resigned.
her a lot more kudos had she done that.
You would have got her more kudos?
That would have, I mean, at least
Black
say
people
where
would've
you
took her
are.
back?
Say where you are. But, you know,
Yeah.
I think
I haven't
there's,
heard that, though.
I think there's warriors and there's mercenaries. She's definitely a mercenary in this case. She was there for the check. And, you know, you want to get that last check. And that's, you know, and I understand.
So what about Ben Carson? Do we have any faith in Ben Carson that
Sleep at the
he
wheel.
will
Sleep at the wheel.
provide affordable housing opportunities for the black community?
Have you
John?
seen homeless rates in L.A.? Excuse me, John.
Not
Yeah,
that
I mean,
men
yo.
care about that.
Do you have any thoughts?
I mean,
John, you are not speechless right now.
I've always liked Ben Carson. I was really disappointed in his presidential. I was hoping that Ben Carson would be sort of the type of black Republican to really want to speak for and to black people. And that just did not wind up really.
Why, you had that hope that he
being the
would?
case. I had hope he would, just given I mean, he's got an incredible story. I mean, years before I ever knew that he had an interest in politics, I saw, what was it, Gifted Hands, the movie.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I love that movie still.
And, you know, my wife and my wife's family, I mean, we're always, you know, admirers of Ben Carson. I've admired his faith, his story, his you know, his professional I mean, obviously he's a gifted individual in terms of his field of expertise and so forth. And in all that.
And his expertise is not in housing.
Well, his expertise isn't in housing, but I mean, it's not to say that a person like that, you know, theoretically shouldn't be intelligent enough to shift from one thing to another potentially, but I just don't see what he's been doing in terms of constructing any constructive, again, agenda for, you know, the black community, the, you know, lower income community, or for America in general. It just sort of seems like at a certain point he just turned around and was like, hey, I kind of like Donald Trump. I'll do what he says. And it's just like, oh, geez, man, you had so much more to offer than that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in that sense, I've been kind of
absolutely.
as far as I don't think, oh geez, I don't know. Don't I can't psychoanalyze it. As far as Omarosa is concerned, I think that Omarosa was kind of like a mix of some good intentions, but a lot of ambition, which let her get into a position to where she was just never going to win. Look, I mean, I said before, I had some reason to hope that Donald Trump, just out of the assumption that he might be kind of a pragmatist. And Barack Obama actually said the same thing after he met with Trump after Trump had won initially, that he would be willing to kind of look at the whole spectrum of ideas and so forth and constituencies and not be so tethered to one, you know, to an agenda that could only be appealing to his base, essentially. I think Omarosa thought that she'd have more influence than she ultimately had.
Okay.
And I think that just put her in a situation where she was marginalized and ultimately shut out of the process. So, I mean, you know, but
Yeah,
say
totally
what's she going to do going forward.
So before we go
I
to
might be
commercial,
worried if I was Trump.
Before we go, okay, that part. Before we go to a commercial break, we're going to go to a caller, and we're going to go to Lawrence. Hey, Lawrence, how are you doing? Hello.
Hi. Good morning.
Is this Lawrence?
Yes.
Hi. You have a comment or question for our guest?
Yes, I have a question. I mean, my question is like, I'm confused. Okay, let's just say like I'm just a regular person, just out here, and I'm watching everything that's going on. Okay, first of all, we don't have a voice as a people, but then I'm saying everything that's going on, nobody is like really like paying attention. I mean, like, for instance, you guys talking about Omarosa, the taxes, President Trump, and all these different things, but I think like there's a bigger issue there. I mean, we've been lied to and been bamboozled and sugar-coated for so long that you don't know who to believe? The preacher, the policeman, the councilman, the congressman, the senator. I mean, what's going on?
And you see, and that's why we opened up with Marvin Gaye, because we don't know what's going on.
I think Lawrence, you on to something, bruh. And what you're on to is an opportunity for the black community to really stand up and say something. You know, you have the power. First and foremost, I think that the black vote does matter. I think that democracy does count. And I think that it is your individual and collective responsibility to say something and do something. And we cannot put all of our eggs in a basket for politicians to have our backs when we elect them. And so I think that we have to give ourselves more credit as a people and as a community to really take full responsibility of our voting power within the voting base and hold ourselves accountable to do something, say something, as well as the elected officials in office. And that takes many things and many steps to go through, but you can't let yourself off the hook or your community. If your peoples don't vote, go to jury duty or anything like that, then I think it behooves us to hold our people in check. It's okay to check your friends and your family members and the people around you, period.
But I think that's probably one of the problems, is that we don't hold our black politicians accountable. And especially here, you know, locally, I think we tend to treat them like they're celebrities. And some of us don't even know who our council person are or our state officials. So Dallas, we'll talk about this accountability.
Accountability is key. I'll say that. But
because
you know what? Really quick
they'll come to the church and ask for the vote.
Really quick on the black vote. There have been several instances where your count has mattered, and it has very much made the difference between the representation and the direction of the representation that we were going to have. I mean, you can see it all over. You saw it for the young brother that became a lieutenant governor in Virginia. You saw it for the sister FAMU graduate, Keisha Lance Bottoms, new mayor of Atlanta. Yep. That was a very close race, and if black people hadn't got out and voted, they would not have the mayor that they have coming into office now. I think people who say to themselves that their vote does not count, if you are listening, if you hear my voice, your vote absolutely counts.
It does.
Do not mistake it. It counts in California. It counts wherever you are in the United States. So, with holding our local electeds accountable, I think we do have a number that have gone, you know, I think they get in there and I think they have the best of intentions, but at some point you become separated from your constituency, and if you are not constantly checking in with your constituency in terms of holding town halls and having opportunities for them to be able to weigh in on the issues and the policies and the votes that you have coming forth, I think giving the power to the people have given you power to come in. We've empowered you to come in and represent us, but I think it's very important that we pay attention to some of the key votes. And I know it's hard that we don't necessarily have the right apparatus that updates our communities on how they are actually voting or not voting on our behalf in some instances. And I think you're going to see some changes.
Okay. All right. Very good. In case you're tuning in, I'm Starlett Quarles filling in for Dominique DePrima on the front page. We're going to take another quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to conclude our conversation on Trump and the future of Black America right here on 102.3 Radio Free KJLH. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Starlett Quarles at The Dialogue, and I'm excited to announce that we will be returning this summer with a series of new shows addressing topics that are relevant to today's generational leaders. So join the conversation by subscribing to our YouTube page, following me on social media, or signing up on our mailing list at thedialoguela.com. Tune into The Dialogue with Starlett Quarles. Real talk, real people.
Welcome back to the front page. If you're just now joining us, I'm Starlett Quarles filling in for Miss Dominique DePrima this week. This morning, we've been talking about Trump, and the future of Black America with my guests, Dallas Fowler, Maleena Lawrence, and John Wood Junior, John, you wanted to piggyback on something Dallas had said regarding the black vote.
Right. Well, Dallas was talking about the importance of the black vote and the fact that the black vote counts, and I absolutely agree with that. And, the thing that we all just have to keep in mind, and I think that everybody on this panel recognizes this, but is the fact that the black vote, even though it counts, it's still meaningless if the black agenda is not articulated behind that, so that we can leverage the outcomes of our votes behind support for that. So just to tell you a quick little story while kind of erasing all the names involved in it, because I don't want to get into trouble, get anybody else in trouble. But I was having after the mayoral race between Garcetti and Gruhl, I was having a conversation with a pretty influential pastor in South LA, and he was telling me a story about a group of local pastors led by an individual who everybody knows, who helped swing the race in Eric Garcetti's favor. And when that happened, afterwards there wound up being a meeting in the mayor's office where Garcetti called these prominent individuals, many from ministry and so forth, together, and he said, okay, well, we're here, tell me what you want. And they sort of like huddled for a second, hadn't seemed to think about it very much beforehand, and went back to him. They said, we want a direct line to the mayor's office. And Garcetti said, done, next person, please. And my point behind telling that story is just the fact that if all we're looking to do is be in the photo op, then we're never going to have an actual picture of progress for the people, which is what needs to happen. Now, I think that a big part of what's allowed the black community to progress over its history in America has been the building up of institutions like the Tuskegee movement, like the Niagara movement, and so forth, wherein we've been able to marshal the total spectrum of intellectual and cultural resources in the black community. And I think the revitalization of those kind of institutional-based movements within the black community has got to be a big part of how we make progress going forward. I mean, we've got some groups now today, but I mean, in at least some cases, it kind of seems like they're dedicated more to basically staying in business by managing the problems within the black community as opposed to actually rallying the resources of the community to solve problems. And Booker T. Washington said that dang near 100 years ago, and it's still the case with a lot of folks. So we need to create new structures in the black community to advocate and to implement change.
So I often say, when we talk about the black agenda, is there one thing? I mean, when you look at the LGBT movement, they wanted marriage. When you look at the Hispanics, they wanted to be legalized citizen. And so for black people, I mean, yes, there are a bunch of different issues that we have, but is there just one thing that we can mobilize around in terms of an agenda? With the civil rights movement, we saw it with equality, right? It was just that impacted all black people, irrespective of socioeconomic status. So is there one thing that we can mobilize around intergenerationally as a black agenda item?
Right, just very, very quickly, it's not one thing these days, and it's so much more complicated than it was in the civil rights movement, because at that time it was very easy to identify Jim Crow as just kind of like a broad-based target that needed to be taken down. Now the layers of inequity and institutional oppression are much more subtle, much more sort of baked into the structure of things, and don't always announce themselves in sort of like the blatantly oppressive rhetoric of like Jim Crow politicians and so forth. But that just like re-emphasizes the importance of, again, marshaling the total intellectual resources of the black community across the political spectrum, from activists to business people to ministry and to professors and academics and so on and so forth, so we can have a collective response to a wide array of difficult problems. But we can still synthesize a central mission in that context, and that's what we got to do.
All right, Maleena, so many black people are discouraged by this Trump administration. Who is the most disengaged black voter, and what will it take for us to re-engage them during this administration?
I think all generations have been touched by being disengaged in this administration, to be honest. The efforts to re-engage and to amplify those who are still holding on and still in the fight, who haven't given up, and who aren't so apathetic, aside of us being up at 4 a.m. here this morning.
That's commitment.
It is commitment. But in addition to that commitment, what we need to do as a black community, as individuals with collective power, is to know and own that you have power. It's like a spiritual activism, button, if you will. You have to recommit yourself every day to this process of on your road to freedom, equality. But at the end of the day, it's a new era So we just have to decide that we want to be united as a people, as a community. Unity is number one. You got to decide you want to unite. If we unite, we can coalition build. We coalition build, we mobilize. When we mobilize, we make a move. When we make a movement and we're coalition building, there's a number of agendas coming together for one simple cause, and that's under the unity of Black people, the Black agenda. To my brother's point here, it's across the board that issues are being made. If you want to identify your issue, when you decide that we're going to unite by all means, any means necessary, we need unity, because we do, in order to push an economic agenda, an educational agenda, a global agenda, because we are living in a global world. We cannot even afford to be not united, and so that means we have to respect each other. We don't have to agree or like each other's political parties, but we have to respect each other as people first, and then look at the political party and the drama you bring, or the issues that you're sitting in front of me to resolve in our people, in our community. And then I just want to say and add, I know we're running out of time, there's organizations in Los Angeles and throughout the country that are actively participating and gearing up for 2018, but we got issues right now. We can't afford to wait until 2018 and recruit without looking at what we're recruiting for. So identify your issue. I'm a co-founding board member of BLADE, which is Black Los Angeles Young Democrats. They're open members. You can sign up for membership as a co-founding member of the Poli-Tainment Report. We're gearing up for a launch next year right now. Also founding member of Revolutionize Hollywood, and everything that I'm saying, you can follow us online. For Revolutionize Hollywood, we're increasing diversity in Hollywood and in the entertainment industry.
About that, because the entertainers are some of the most influential people, and especially with these millennials, right? They're have a great impact on the things that they're doing and saying and how they're moving in the world. Besides Colin Kaepernick, what other celebrities out there are doing stuff on behalf of the Black community on the social political realm?
I want to start where I'm sitting. Stevie Wonder.
Okay, all right.
KJLH Radio. You know what I'm saying? I have to pay homage, because he sees this as a responsibility, and media is a responsibility. We have other publications, be it the Los Angeles Sentinel, we have bloggers from a media perspective. And then from a celebrity perspective, there's all kind of celebrities that are doing things. I focus on celebrities on the Poli-Tainment Report that are service celebrities, is what we call them. And these service celebrities like Kaepernick, like Alicia Keys with her fight with AIDS, Beyonce with her feminism, her roles, and taking a stab at feminism and really exercising the power and the women's right to vote and things of that nature. But people who are funding a movement on the down, on the down low, I don't want to, but you know what I'm saying. But they're funding the movement, like Belafonte did, and Ozzie Davis and Ruby Dee did when. Will and Jada, thank you, Dallas. These individuals are coming together and saying, let's mobilize these movements. And so we're identifying them. We're identifying them because we're living in a crucial time. Okay. And it's important.
All right. Dallas, we have midterm state elections coming up in June. Before we go, can we just quickly discuss what we need to know and understand as a community?
So midterm elections are in June. You will see the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, state insurance commissioner, border equalization. A lot of these statewide or partial state offices are going to be on the ballot. It is very critical. You're going to see them. They're going to be coming to your churches. They're going to be coming to your communities and your Black clubs and all that good stuff. And it's very important for you to ask the questions that matter to you, and let them know that we are a multidimensional people. We have a variety of issues that we are concerned with as we are being attacked on several fronts. So I think it's important to ask them. My question personally is, what have you done for Black women lately? That is my personal question for many of these people running. And I think we've got a great group of candidates that are running across the state. And then many of you will also have elections at your assembly and Senate level as well. So I'm personally actually working for Eleni Kounalakis, who's running for lieutenant governor, and I think Kamala Harris has endorsed her, and I think a host of other individuals are coming on board to her campaign. I think it's important. I'm also working with another congressional person by the name of Deidre Greenaway, who is running up in the high desert targeting a Republican Steve Knight, another African-American woman, very qualified with a diverse background. I think it's important for us to look for ways, and just what Maleena was saying with the celebrities that are funding causes. I just saw Jane Fonda gave $100,000 to take out Daryl Issa in the Orange County area. I think we are doing our best. My Congresswoman Karen Bass has a Sea Change political action committee that has been going out in some of these red districts and looking at ways that we can take back the House. So I think those are a great way. Sea Change is a great way to get involved. If you're interested in that, you can reach out to Karen Bass's office and how you can get involved with her on that side of her operation.
John, talk about what you're doing with Better Angels.
Right. So Better Angels is an organization, it's a bipartisan organization, which basically is really nonpartisan organization, which has pioneered this program of essentially social mediation. So what they do is they go through, and these are individuals, different political parties, ethnicities, African Americans, Caucasians, Latinos, so on and so forth, who have this program of community mediation where they go into local communities and bring together Democrats and Republicans and people who have sort of been polarized along the political socio spectrum to basically sit down in a room together through a controlled program and kind of like be open about their feelings in terms of how they feel the other side has sort of misjudged or mistreated them, and to create some kind of human understanding and empathy between polarized groups and so forth. And for me, that's very important.
All right, fantastic.
Starlett, can I add real quick that I am working, we're launching some policies next year. And one of those policies is the Police Liability Insurance Act with the Community Council for Police Accountability. We're getting our first round of funding to go out into the community to have petitions signed, and we're asking the community to actually sign a petition so that we can find police accountable and hold police accountable, and make sure that here in LA, the city of Los Angeles, that they carry liability insurance is what we're pushing for. And so I think that's very important, and we'll have more information on that.
All right. Well, we are getting close to the end of the hour. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in to the front page today. Thank you, Dallas Fowler. How can people find you real quickly?
You can find me on Instagram, Twitter at Yo Dallas, like Yo Dallas. What's up?
Maleena, how can we find you?
You can find me on all social media platforms at Maleena Lawrence, at Maleena Lawrence.
And John, how can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at The Wood Review.
Thank you so much.
Review with John Wood Jr.
Thank you. Join us tomorrow as we'll discuss sexual harassment and the trickle-down effect right here on the front page with me, Starlett Quarles, signing off as my mama's child and my daddy's baby girl. Until tomorrow, God bless you.
Talking about an